Actually, like to that point then. So remote work, do you think that's going to be changing the way title and escrow works in the
It
future?
already has.
Really? All
Yeah,
right.
I have a previous coworker who lives in Arizona and has been a title officer here locally for many, many years. He wanted
Here in Whatcom
Yep.
County.
Yeah, he wanted to move somewhere, and technology has given him the opportunity to sit behind a desk anywhere and do title insurance.
Oh, there you go, right?
You could, and the model for title insurance, because they're not really replacing title officers. It's kind of a dying breed. So it's interesting that they have to take and spread the workload. And you do that through technology, because someone here, and it's all done the same. So someone here in Washington, in Whatcom County, can do title in King, Pierce, Thornton, Spokane, Walla Walla, Whitman, like all those counties. Everything operates the same. And so if you're a title officer here or on the lake on your boat, you could just do the work. That's the coolest part.
You said that title and escrow kind of like a dying breed. Why is that?
Because there's no training manual for this kind of position as a title officer or escrow. You kind of get into it by introduction. And then once you're in, it pays well, it's stimulating, and there's always something new. And so for the right person, you don't leave. And that's very, very common in the industry. Like if you talk to any of our competitors, that is the story. Like, oh, that is just what it is. You
All
get
right.
in and you're like, why would I ever move?
If it's good pay and it's mentally stimulating, good heavens, that's so much better than...
And the best part about title and escrow is you get what you put in. So do you want to run a small desk and you kind of want to leave at 4 every day? If your company allows, and there are someone like that where she gets all her work done at a certain time and she's like, okay, I don't need to grow bigger. So I get to live a life. Or or it's like Shay, who's like, I'm young, I'm ambitious, I'm going to do the extra 15% and rise to the top and then see what I can do. And so there's the freedom of getting what you put in.
Right. So you were saying that people who run into title and escrow effectively and they decide they like it, how does that happen?
Oh, well, I'll tell you my story. I was at a manufacturing plant running as a lead, and they capped the rate, like my pay rate. And then my friend who was an escrow assistant was like, our receptionist makes that much money. And so I was like, what? I'll do receptionist work if that's the starting wage. And that's how I started as a receptionist, and then got poached by the competitors saying, hey, we could make you title examiner. And my current employer at that point was like, take it, because we can't afford to make you a title examiner. And so I studied abroad, and then I got an education next to someone who's been doing it for 25 years.
Oh, you probably learned a ton from that.
100%. And it was one-on-one. So where do you find that? It's like a mentorship type.
Yeah.
Unofficial apprenticeship where she's like, she gave me responsibilities as I was learning and as she felt comfortable, because it is a risk analysis type job as a title officer. So you're like, okay, here it is. Are you checking? And there's so much that when I asked, how do I go from an examiner to a title officer? They're like, okay, when we trust you to remove things from the policy is when, so there was, and I Googled it. I did everything I can to see what does it take? There is nothing that it takes. It's literally the trust of the company that you work with. They're like, are we going to promote you to make decisions that affect people's lives and investments? And so then I did that. And then I did that as a commercial guy. And so that's how you jump in. And if you could swim, you're swimming.
And do you think that's typical of most people that end up in the field?
Yes. Yeah. Most of them that I know locally. And I even met title officers in Walla Walla, because that's where
It's all good. Just make sure
that's where my partner's from. I met some of the title officers and I'm like, oh, we're the same kind of weirdos, because it is very isolating work. You're not on a team. You get a transaction, and you do research on property, and in a very systematic manner that you check a lot of boxes. And so there's the personality to sit at a desk for 8, 10, 12 hours and go through history documents that you can't even read. They wrote in cursive in the early, like in the 20s, and you're like, it's tough. Or maps. You got to draw maps. There's a lot of There's a lot to title examining that people understand. And so it's tough to learn. There's no school for this. You have to get in and see if the people around you are comfortable enough to teach you the skills.
It really almost seems like it's like a trade.
It's a trade.
Interesting.
It's historical research.
No, it's true. I suppose, like, I've never heard of a class at a university for title and escrow.
Well, think of like every small community had its own way of keeping records. And so they're like for the last 120 years, you have to deal with every office that indexed things differently. Last name, address, by the parcel ID number, by the legal description. So how do they categorize things? And so where did the document chain lead? It's complicated. And so you can't necessarily adapt one approach to everything. It's you're encumbering, or as you're encountering things, you're dealing with that set of systems.
It's interesting. That almost sounds like it would incentivize title and escrow companies to really be local owned and locally based.
100%. You have to.
Right.
But over the years, like First American, in Chicago, and a few other ones, well, they come in and they buy out these companies who have locally held those records, and they say, "Hey, you're valuable. We're coming in and we're gonna keep this." Now they've since made everything available online, and so you could go look at records,
Right.
and from 100 years ago, written every single document, and so that makes the ability to title anywhere pretty easy. It's all digitalized.
Yeah, interesting. So I suppose that kind of feeds into why you guys refer to yourself as a corporate startup, where it's effectively run as a small business. You just fall under a larger umbrella for some of your infrastructure.
Yes, and the tools and resources. Yeah, think of it as, every Jack in the Box is a little different because they're franchised.
Right.
Well, First American has a standardized approach that they highlight the people and their personalities and strengths, because this job is very, like we talked about, different shades. And so if you make certain things streamlined, it leaves the ability and the space to connect on the emotional and the human side of things. And so it was pretty massive for us on that front.